another episode of Get a Load of This. From the Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Rick.
Rick is joining us today as a very special
You
guest.
did that like a pro. Did you
I
hear
know.
you?
You went right in. I was expecting
Got
him
my radio voice.
rap
Yeah.
a little, but yeah.
Yeah, so Rick, the often talked about, we've invoked your name on many
Belt
occasions.
buckle criticizing,
Yeah, time zone.
analyzing.
I mean, you have.
I'm time zone normative.
Right. So you have broken this man and sent him home to us to deal with this on many occasions. First the belt buckle. Maybe I wasn't first, but that was a big one.
It's prominent.
Which he was broken. We're like, no, Jared. It's not nothing to be concerned about unless you're from Texas, and then your belt buckle is going to be upside down. Then you can read your own belt buckle.
Now, Rick has told me that he's experimented with his belt buckle.
Yeah,
He's gone the other way
I have
occasionally.
Oh, wow.
And
that's
we're
true.
breaking ground here.
That is true.
And how'd you like going the other way?
It didn't work for me.
It just didn't feel right.
There was something not right about it. Yes.
Well, so there was that, and then there was the time zone thing where,
I think Jared started that one. I don't know what got him on
No.
that kick, but I was
I'm
the
not
one.
sure.
Sprinkle a little Miracle
I was
Grow on it.
defending. I was defending the existing time zone rules.
Yeah, that one
And
still.
Jared-
I got no love for you on that one. You're just flat wrong.
I'm
Now,
not alone.
If we want to talk about daylight
Flat
savings, then we can have a conversation there. But time
It's all
zones
related.
are necessary, and
Okay.
yeah, it's yeah. Well, there's been other things too. What else have you screwed with them about? Flat
So-
Earth? I don't
so
know.
many things. No, I'm not a flat earther. but,
It'd be a fun thing to discuss. I
Yeah.
think what Jared and I have in common that just leads to these things is that we're just both critical thinkers. We like to argue about it.
We
We
do.
just
That's
like
good,
to
yeah.
argue
Yeah.
about it, and we can do it without
We
pissing
can,
each other off too much.
So you
Get paid to do it at work,
Do
so.
you tend to wait till one of you makes a point and then someone just automatically takes the contrary point, or is it generally you are actually on opposite sides of things?
No, I would say generally we are in agreement on a lot of things.
Most.
But Rick has a knack for taking a
Being
viewpoint that he
argumentative.
doesn't even believe in and just going with it and just to get under your
Well,
skin.
it's not. The motive is not to get under your skin. The
Right.
motive is to exercise arguing.
Yeah, yeah.
Really,
Mhm.
and I don't. A lot of people like to use the word argue with a negative connotation,
Right.
and I don't. It's the exercise of making a point and counterpoint
It's
and
debate. Yeah.
understanding.
It's healthy.
So, yeah.
Well, it's what we kind of talked about on many times. We've talked about this, that it's what's missing in society is that people are afraid to have the conversation and to have that debate, and people do get their feathers all ruffled and get pissed off, and then everything breaks down, and you call them a racist, and the fucking conversation's over. It's like, well, no, everybody should have those conversations and be prepared for that debate.
But I will say it's easy among everybody to get upset, to get mad, and to turn it into a fight. And it's too simple to go down that path. So you do have to be careful. Like, let's continue to keep this civil and all that. So I don't often get that way with Rick at work. But,
So
with
you
family
guys-
members, it's really easy to get mad.
You guys work with. Well, you said you aren't seeing each other a lot. I guess you guys are in different areas
So
lately. Or?
recently I've been at our corporate office.
Okay.
I
I know you can't talk about much, otherwise
yeah.
the feds are going to rush us or something like that.
Right.
We're all
We talk
shutting
about
this thing down.
The bunker that we work in.
Right. Yeah. It's totally underground.
Yeah. So,
No,
but-
we work in the same place, but Jared's work will require him to be in different
Okay.
locations sometimes. Mine's pretty much always the same spot.
always in the bunker.
Yeah.
I email him now, and he almost never emails me back.
I am bad at that,
It's really,
especially.
like,
I
hurts
too,
my
he hates
feelings.
that. He really gets aggravated when I don't
know.
respond.
I don't hold up my end of the bargain there.
So whenever you guys are working are co-located for working, are there other people around you, right? I presume.
Most all the time.
And do
Almost all
those
the time.
people usually involve themselves in the conversations? They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh fuck,
Oh,
here they
yeah.
go again."
Sometimes.
Yeah, usually
Sometimes that.
every now
but
and then
usually,
what would you say is usually how it gets started?
Oh, how something gets started?
Yeah. When we have these interesting debates,
Yeah.
the crowd pleasers.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
When a crowd gathers around
Yeah,
you,
it sometimes
it's
does
generally
happen.
pretty organic. It's usually not me or you starting it. It's somebody else will just bring up who knows what. It'll segue. And
So
then
have you guys talked
we'll go
about 007 yet?
I almost emailed.
I brought it up today.
I almost emailed
With-
Mike about it.
with Mike.
I
I
said
brought
this
it up.
has to. So we have
It's,
a guy at work who's a hardcore James Bond fan.
Oh, really?
Like, big time.
Yeah.
How's he feel about this, or do we know?
I
He
haven't
didn't care.
talked to him. He did?
Because
He blew it off.
because it's just hype. He's like, oh no, that's not real. They're not really going to cast a woman as James Bond. There's going to be some association with the number for some amount of time, and then it'll go away. And they're gonna maintain this established character. That's his. Well, they're talking about his belief.
That James Bond is going to retire from MI6 and hand over his 007 number. It's like, they assign new numbers. Everybody knows that. You don't just recycle a number for an agent, you know?
So here's what I couldn't find an answer to is I know of one other movie where they reference a 006. Mm-hmm. Is there any other movie where they reference another 00 anything?
I have no idea.
I believe so. Yeah. So the first...
Austin Powers?
Yeah. The first... one with Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye.
Yeah.
They referenced, for sure, that might have been the 006.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'm pretty sure I've seen others where they reference 008 and others.
Okay.
There's got to be someone that's like a 124, you know? I mean, there's got to be someone that doesn't have a desirable 00 number.
Well, they talk about 00s, right? They're all... So, yeah, I don't know if it's 0010, 00100, like if it's always a 00 in front. I always assumed it was single digits because there's only so many
on
of
that
them.
one.
We'll get back to you on that, folks.
Yeah, that'd be a whole other conversation.
All right, before we get too far down that path, we're getting thirsty here, and I got inspired. You're not going to be inspired by it, but there's been so many of, two things. So many of these commercials on TV lately, I've been seeing them all over, but we've also talked about it on the podcast a bunch with this ASMR stuff.
Yep.
So have you seen the commercial over and over again?
So. Yeah.
So
it's troubling.
Yeah, I got it.
Because you kind of...
What's the commercial? Tell me about it.
I don't remember what it's for, but I know he's talking about. You know what the ASMR shit is?
I've heard the podcast.
Yeah.
Michelob Ultra Pure Gold. Have you seen that where the girl's like...
Oh, yeah.
What's it say on the bottom?
It's organic.
Organic light lager.
There you go, sir.
All right.
So... It's almost a joke.
USDA organic. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. But I've been seeing these commercials so many times. I hate the commercial for one because I don't like that musician. I forget what her name is, but
she's a musician?
Yeah.
Really?
She's like a singer.
Okay. And she's doing this whole rapping on the bottle or tapping her fingernails on the bottle.
And she's all like whispering into the microphone.
Okay.
Let's experience this.
It always creeps me out.
Together.
I know he's just making fun of her, but it still makes me feel uncomfortable.
So, yeah.
That's why I talk over it.
It's especially undesirable with headphones on.
Please don't do that.
And I can't remember if this fits in these koozies.
I don't know.
I think it doesn't. Or the lid doesn't.
Was I supposed to wait? I drank
it.
It's
okay.
No,
you're fine. Under normal circumstances. No. It's all good. So I think it's just Michelob Ultra made with organic ingredients. It's the same shit.
It's like drinking water. I don't taste any beer. But I'm also drinking a Coors Light right before that. I really don't taste any beer.
Well.
There's not much to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as beer goes, it's about as watered down as you can get.
Yep.
But it's considered like a classy, pure,
Organic.
Yeah, so this is Ultra Pure Gold.
Nothing is sacred.
Organic.
First, we've got a female 007. Now we got beer that doesn't taste like beer. What else is next?
Everything looks like it.
Everything's going by the way.
Would you like a koozie for your
Sure.
bottle? Can you get him a koozie?
You have that or
make it quieter when I set it down.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That might be the slopped out one.
It is a little bit. Here, maybe try that.
That's fine.
All right.
A little loose. It's seen some things down here. That koozie's been places.
So we teased this on the last full episode that we were going to talk about something that could potentially be controversial. I think historically it's a very controversial issue. It doesn't have to be controversial tonight, but you never know. So the issue that we're going to get into is... Oh, wow. Wait for it.
No, before we get into that, where do you stand from a political spectrum? I mean, do you consider yourself center right, center left, far left, right down fucking central?
I'd consider myself on the right for sure. Mm-hmm. I used to think that I'd call myself far right, but I'm not sure what the definition
far right
of
has gone way the fuck out there now.
I'm not sure if I understand the spectrum of left to right very well. So
anymore,
I'd be happy to discuss what there's not an issue that you could ask me about that would bother me that you asked me about, but I'm going to be on the right on pretty much every topic that you could ask me about.
And just to level set things, because people that listen regularly know where Jared and I stand from a religious standpoint. Are you do you consider yourself religious? Are you a practicing Christian?
I am.
You go to church regularly?
I do.
Okay. Interesting because we know where we stand on this. I don't go to church. I'm an atheist. I probably call myself more agnostic than anything. I don't know, but I'm leaning towards atheist. That I don't. So
I didn't plan to make a religious argument.
Okay.
That's not. I don't feel like this topic needs that. So.
All right.
Well, don't worry, I'll get into it.
We'll get there. So anyway, now Jared can continue. People can probably guess where we're going with this. Is that? But I wanted to level set there. Where do we all stand from basic, high level? Here's where we all,
So the topic itself is old, decades old, but I feel it's pretty interesting that recently, I think over the last few months, there's just been this huge surge in discussion and laws and legislation about abortion. There's your controversial topic of the day. So I find it interesting, wherever you stand on it, that it's just suddenly a thing again. Like, we've gone decades without anybody really even talking about abortion.
Well, I don't know about that, but people talk about it. I just think that for the longest time there was no threat to Roe v. Wade until recently.
Yeah.
So it was discussed every single time a Supreme Court seat became vacant. Every time the the presidency was open, or there was a new election, it was a topic. But
I feel like it was a back burner topic because both sides were afraid to piss off whoever, and so they were like, let's just leave that alone.
Yeah. So the point I used to make is like, well, it's not a big deal because it would take the perfect storm of things to get it in front of the Supreme Court to make a difference.
I feel like storm is coming.
I feel like that's happening.
Are the conditions right for this storm?
Right.
Well, right or wrong, I mean, it depends on your perspective, but I think that yes, the court is primed from if you're conservative, if you're a pro-lifer, the court is in a position where it's ripe to have a case presented that would potentially be favorable to the pro-lifers. And that's why you see these cases being brought up. That's why you see things happening in Georgia and in Missouri and in all these other states where they're making these radical laws. They're pushing the envelope because they want it to get through the court system, to get to the Supreme Court and have a judgment, because they don't know how long this is going to last. How long this environment will be ripe.
Is it your opinion, both of you, that if that challenge were to make it to the Supreme Court, do you think the justices that are in there now, do you think it's clear which way they would go? I don't feel like it is.
No.
We have the most recently appointed judges who are, Trump's picks. They're the conservative judges, but they've been aligning with the liberal judges
on some occasions.
And more frequently than I expected.
Right. I think than anybody expected, but that's because the media made it out to be like, oh, these guys are going to be horrible. Everything's going to be, so far right. And it's like, in reality, they're reasonable jurists that really do interpret the law, and they're not going to do something. They're not legislating from the bench, as they say. I don't know. I think there's so many factors that still we don't know what case is going to make it to the Supreme Court. So how they rule and what impact it would have to the various states' laws depends on what case actually makes it there, right?
Sure.
So if the case is saying that you should not have late-term abortion, I think that the court would rule in favor of banning late-term abortions. If the case was no abortion, period, everybody must. If there's a conception, there's a birth. I think that the court would say no. They would go on the other side of that and say no. We, in the case of rape or other tragic events, the health of the mother, they would take things into consideration, but there would be constraints. There would be boundaries put on it. So first trimester, whatever it is, there would be something like that would have to be in place I think. But again, it depends on what case is presented to the court.
Let's recap a little bit some of the legislation that we've been talking about. So I feel like the first thing I can recall hearing relatively recently was it New York or...
I was going to mention New York.
Yeah, and that was going the other way, which was loosening restrictions on abortion.
Which to me makes it seem like they perceive what we're discussing, that the conditions are becoming right to challenge Roe, and they want to put in their own laws because they're no longer going to get what they want from the federal level.
So do either of you know what that legislation was in New York?
The attributes of it that I remember are that they were no longer going to consider it homicide if you killed a baby before it was born. That was something that changed.
Even in some cases after it was born, I believe, was what. Well, maybe that wasn't New York.
I think it wasn't it the governor of Virginia who was talking about that? I don't think they made it law or anything, but they said that they wanted to. He was interested in the possibility of making it so that a baby. Were they talking about failed abortions, perhaps?
It could have been, or I think they said that they would. The way he worded it on the radio show was that a baby would be born,
and then they would discuss
made comfortable, and then they would discuss the viability of the child,
whether or not they would
try to maintain
in
that.
The case of
a failed abortion, in the case of a mother wanting to make that last minute decision.
Is that really though? Like. You wouldn't take a healthy baby and go, now hold on, let's think about this. Does she really want it? Or was it like the kid is already suffering and has some other issue and they said, let's put him out of his misery?
Here's a case where we should have done some more research, but I
did a little, but there was a lot to get into.
It wasn't legislation though. That was just rhetoric. They were just talking.
I feel like that's where people said, this is what they're doing in New York. They're going to
So the New York thing, they did extend how late into pregnancies they were going to make it legal.
Like all the way up to
I thought it was up to the moment of birth.
Yeah.
I think that there were some limits on it, like beyond a certain point, it required maybe 2 doctors to agree on some, I don't know, or 2 doctors to be participating or something like that. There were some more to it, but they definitely relieved some of the restrictions that they already did have, made it more
so do you think
accessible,
regardless of the current political climate, that they might feel threatened, hey, we need to enact this legislation while we can, or whatever? Why? Like what do they who are they backing that they feel like we got to do this right now? Is it the women who are worried about their rights to
I think it's all a lot of it is grandstanding.
Are they just trying to get votes? Is that what this comes down to?
I don't know.
Satisfy
maybe.
I think it's
the left.
Maybe
it's Planned Parenthood and the far right. It's politicking. There's not. I mean, the cases where someone would actually want to do that to have an abortion at 27 weeks.
Yeah, it's got to be such a limited
is rare
number of people that are seeking out that. But
what is full term? Is 50? How
40?
40 weeks. Okay,
40 weeks is a full term.
So 40. So okay, those circumstances are pretty rare, I think, right?
Which ones?
Where someone would have 39 weeks, they want to have an abortion, or 40 weeks.
I don't know.
I think that's. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
that as a rare thing. But
I wouldn't think there's a lot of people out there that would choose that. But
would it be fair to say that you want it to be a rare thing?
Definitely want it to be a rare thing. I think it's a shame. You know, if so look, I'll throw this out there.
Okay.
I would say I am pro-choice, and that there should be a choice. The mother and the father should be able to make a determination, but they should make that determination without haste. And morning after is a fine option, but I think it should be within definitely the first trimester, if not even half that. Whatever.
So make it with haste. They should hurry and make that decision.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Did I say that wrong? I'm sorry.
Said without haste.
Yeah.
I like that you said the woman and the man, or what'd you say? The mother and the father.
The mother and the father should make that decision. They should make it.
We'll kind of establish everyone's opinion here, but I think that our conversation should eventually go to the role of the father in the decision. Well, I think that's worth exploring.
I'll throw this out there. I told a couple people that this was going to be the topic, And he was like, oh, everybody, easy, watch Jesus. Out. And I was like, yeah, it could get interesting. And so one of those people I talked to was my sister. And she's like, well, I feel like there should be a woman there. And I'm like, yeah, but there's not. And why? I mean, why can't we have opinions about this? I know a lot of the talking heads out there, a lot of these protesters, these activist actors, actresses who tell us that we're not allowed to have an opinion because we don't have a vagina. Fuck you. It takes two people to make a baby, and in every case, that child is half of it is someone else's DNA, and now yes, the mother's carrying.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't find it to be a 50-50 split there. It's
no, it's not. But
there's a whole other thing that happens
it's her body,
when you carry
because
a baby
but the man should have some weight in the conversation.
Right. We're only talking about two people.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one. There's a third person.
Yeah, but that third person can't speak for itself.
It's not right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's probably, in my opinion, the best argument against, you say it was your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Against that point of view, that we have to have a woman here, because I don't see this as a woman's issue. I think that there's a lot of people who want this to be a woman's issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for me, the focus needs to be on this new human.
Okay. No, I see where your point is.
I think that's one of the issues that makes this hard to agree on, is that you won't get everyone to agree on the definition of a human life. When that happens, when is so the term viability, right? We talk about when is it viable.
I've heard people say that it's not a personhood is not achieved yet, but do you feel that there's people who've been able to make a sound argument that it's not human life? I mean,
I have not heard anybody that's been able to make that argument. Yeah,
and there's no question that it's human.
Right.
I think that whenever
it's definitely a human life, but
right after conception, whenever it is, two cells. Okay, it's split once.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Hard to make the argument that that's a human being at that point. It has no resemblance to. I'm not saying it's not. I'm being
with you.
A bit of devil's advocate here, right? So, but it's hard to make that argument because it doesn't have arms, legs, eyelids, eyes, doesn't have a torso.
Doesn't look like you.
Doesn't look like anything.
Okay.
It looks like, under a microscope, it looks like two cells.
Uh-huh.
And then for a long time, it just looks like a cluster of cells, which is the argument that a lot of activists, pro-choice activists make, is that it's just a cluster of cells. It's not a human. But at some point, there's a heartbeat, and you can definitely identify that it's a tiny human, and I think that is where I'm like, okay, there's no arguing your way out of that one. That if they see that, they're like, okay, yes, that's clearly a small human.
Okay.
Which goes back to what I was saying about, like, you make that choice quickly.
That's what a lot of the laws are focusing on is heartbeats.
Yeah.
So does that lead you to believe that those laws are okay?
I would say
that's a sign of a life that's worth defending.
I could see why that's a fair argument. I'm not going to say that I'm 100% on board with that.
Okay.
My real stance on this is that it should be few and far between. They should be rare, and it should be in extreme circumstances. It should be if and unfortunately, people will be raped. Women will be raped, and that's a fact of life. There are sick fucks in the world that are going to do those kinds of things, and they're potentially going to impregnate the victim. In those cases, that woman should absolutely have the right to choose an abortion. She shouldn't have to carry a baby that she didn't want in the first place, that was conceived out of a violent act. That should be allowed 100%, in my opinion. If it's incest, if she's abused, if she's molested, same rules apply. And they should, but and then the circumstances then maybe should be opened up a little bit more. Like, okay, you can choose a little bit later. If you want to have an abortion, that's a radical thought. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but if you are just a person that is sexually active and you forgot to put a condom on or forgot to take your birth control pill and you missed your period and you're like, oh shit, I think I'm pregnant. Those should be few and far between. If we should not enforce. That's the wrong word. absolutely wrong word. We should encourage people to use the measures that are out there. So use condoms, use birth control.
Did you change those words because you didn't want it to be legal?
I don't want it to be a legal influence. I don't want it to be an enforcement.
A cultural influence.
I don't want someone to say. I don't want the government ever to say you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to wear condoms, or we're gonna castrate you. We're gonna sew up your parts. That's not a good option either. So
that's a viable option.
I don't know, castration. I don't know if that should be on the table.
On this planet.
Yeah. So, but I think that if it is about education, it is about it's about enlightenment to people to say, look, you can't keep doing this. We're not going to allow you to do this. Society's not going to allow you to do this. To continue.
What about limit? Should we put a cap on it? No,
but then what?
You had your abortion,
but
that's it. You got one.
Yeah, but how do you limit it? I don't know how that happens either. But people should just be more responsible, I think. And the problem is that I think one of the problems is that 30 years ago, 20 years ago, there was a negative stigma on the word abortion and the act of getting an abortion. Now you have these activist actresses and others that are standing on stages.
Acting it out.
Yeah. Bragging. I had one yesterday.
To the sound of applause.
Yes. What was her name? Samantha B on TNT or something like that. She did a whole fucking song and dance about, go get your abortions, girls, with a smile and a fucking song behind her. Mm-hmm. Now, look, I mean, it's First Amendment. She can say whatever the fuck she wants to. The fact that we as a society are accepting that kind of idiotic behavior.
Yeah, they're treating evil like it's good.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not a good place to be. We shouldn't be in that zone.
Now, I want to disagree with you on. You're saying, if they're raped or incest or whatever, they should have more time. But if they just got laid on a weekend and, oh shit, I'm pregnant, hey, that's your responsibility.
You should make a decision quickly then. Number one, you should know.
I agree. You should make a decision quickly, but I just think, what's the difference? If you're okay with an abortion at whatever period for a rape, then it's the same thing. Well, you should be okay with it for somebody who just decides.
The difference is that in the case of rape, the mother of that child, the person carrying that child, didn't make a choice to have sex.
Right.
They didn't. They had no part in it. They were an unwilling participant in the conception of that child.
Right.
So in the case of a crazy Saturday night, you made choices.
I understand
there are consequences that come with those choices.
As far as whether it's okay, as far as ending a life or not ending a life, or this isn't a life yet, or it is, or whatever, picking that period, that point, shouldn't matter the circumstances. It's either okay to terminate this or it's not.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So I'm just saying, I disagree with being flexible with that time frame depending on the circumstances. I think we should identify a time where this is not okay. I don't care why. Right. And this is acceptable. I think that should be earlier than later.
Here's why we should have a woman present. There's a lot of shit we don't know. I don't know what morning sickness feels like, and if it's always there. Does it always happen if you're pregnant? Do you get morning sickness? If you miss a period, I guess it can possibly happen and be a false alarm. You miss it, you're late, whatever, and it's just a thing. So there's probably a lot of factors there where a woman would say, like, well, you don't always know. And it could be 2 months in before you're aware. It could be 3 months in before you're aware.
Yeah.
And so then what? Then what do I do? Now, all of a sudden, I'm pregnant. I'm 3 months in. The law doesn't allow me to get an abortion. What the fuck do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I still go back to, we need to decide what is an acceptable time frame. Not as far as, like, is it long enough for me to know? Not worried about that. The developing fetus, at what point is this not two cells that are splitting and now it's a being that has a heartbeat and organs and, or whatever, right? Whatever we decide that point is, who cares what circumstances? If you didn't know, that's on you. If you got raped or whatever, that sucks. But if you waited 5 months to decide, that's on you. But I definitely don't think we should be saying, 7 months, hey, she was raped, so she gets to decide whenever. That's way too long. 7 months is, in my opinion.
I've got a simple solution.
Yeah.
Just no abortion.
Right.
None at all.
None at all.
But what? So
in reality, if I could control it, I would completely skip the goal of establishing legal precedent or new legislation, and I would go straight towards, I want every person in the world to think that abortion is just not an option. That's what I would consider the ultimate goal, is that no one would ever want it.
But I think that is an unrealistic expectation.
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is.
But that not just that that there will always be someone that wants it. I think that there will always be reasonable circumstances where it might be a necessary medical procedure.
Okay, I can imagine that.
No, absolutely.
You could say
a child that's not viable. Think about they can do a lot of tests on babies now, on these 3D ultrasounds, and they can see that. Let's say that this baby has one lung, no eyeballs, only one arm.
Right.
Its chances of survival are slim.
There's lots of cases, and I've known people who've had pregnancies like this. They know the baby is not going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you how I perceive that situation. I definitely do not think that that's an okay time to have an abortion. So here's how I look at a situation like that.
Okay.
There's this innocent human life that is living.
Right.
In what I consider to be perhaps one of the most sacred places possible, in the womb of its mother.
Yep.
All right. This is miraculous. This is an amazing thing that this baby that can't survive outside its mother can survive in the mother. It's magical. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's acceptable for someone to say, "Oh, it's not going to live later. Kill it." We got to kill it. That's the best option.
That's
is to kill it.
That's a fair argument. What about if the mother's health was at risk?
I agree that's tough. So imagine a situation. Further, I could go even further and challenge myself even further and say that if the pregnancy continues, it's likely that it would endanger the life of the mother, and the baby's not yet viable. It's not going to survive either. So it's not even a choice between the mother or the baby. It's a potential could exist that a pregnancy could lead to the death of both the baby and the mother. I really struggle with that. I think you would
still think
no. It is a terrible evil, and I do think that the conclusion that best aligns with the principles that I'm trying to adhere to here is to have an abortion to preserve the life that can be saved. If only one life can be saved, save the one life.
Sure.
But it's I agree. There are some really challenging situations.
Yeah. I would also say that probably doesn't happen very often, where you have to make that choice. Where you've got an unviable fetus, and this is going to kill the mother too. I'm just guessing that doesn't happen all that often. But
I don't know. I think it probably happens more than we realize.
Let's say you've got a perfectly healthy fetus, baby, and it's going to kill the mother. She can't handle it. So what do? There's nothing wrong with this kid, right?
And there's nothing wrong with the mother other than that she can't handle childbirth.
Right.
That's obviously
if the pregnancy
a terrible choice
in this hypothetical situation, ending the pregnancy removes all the risk for the mother, and she'll go on living a healthy life, perhaps even to have another baby.
Yeah.
And alternatively, if the baby stays alive, there's a high likelihood that the mother will die. That'd be a terrible situation, a terrible choice to make.
I'll give my answer first. I would say, especially if it has gone late term, then that's a risk that mother's going to take. Like, this baby has developed to this point. Probably if you and this is where you kind of get into if you took him or her out of the womb right now, maybe we could keep him alive, like a preemie or whatever. They would probably just do a cesarean. I don't know what the problem would be that would cause the mother to die, but whatever. I say, at 7 or 8 months, hey, that sucks for you. That's life. We're going to hope that you make it. We're going to do everything you can, mom, to make it, but we're going to have this baby.
Yeah.
Well, see, this is at 1 month or 2 weeks or whatever, it's like no brainer. You know,
right.
This
real problems that doctors are confronted with probably daily. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's daily, but definitely a hell of a lot more frequently than we are. You know, that it's tough. There's tough decisions, and there's not legislation out there that tells you which way you should act on this. You have to present as a doctor. Yeah, you have to present the options to the family and say, here, well, what do you want to do? This is where we stand here. So it's much more than an abortion conversation. It's a life and death. It's a living will conversation. It's a lot of factors there. I want to go back to one thing you said about the miracle of childbirth.
Okay.
So
I also wanted to make a comment.
I'm excited. I really am looking forward to it.
So today is Chuck's birthday, my boy Chuck, and happy birthday, Chuck. And
sweet 16.
That's right. And it's also his golden. We talked about this a little bit in the last. His golden birthday. So it's the 16th of July, and it's his 16th birthday, which is cool. So he wanted to go get his license. We tried, failed. The state of Illinois is a motherfucker, and they screwed him out of his
for so many reasons.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's some technicality BS that he can't get his license for another month.
I might have cursed when Google Maps welcomed me to Illinois on my way over here.
Fuck you, Google.
I don't want to be in Illinois. Yeah. So we're on the way up there to the DMV, and he's got all of his paperwork in his hand. He's got a Social Security card. He's got, which he thought was the coolest thing. He's like, oh my God, that's a cool number. I got a cool Social Security. I'm like, it's a fucking number, man. And he goes, it's cool. He's a fucking weirdo, right? And he's a funny kid. But he's got his birth certificate. And he goes, and he's looking at it. He goes, it doesn't say the name of the doctor that delivered me. And I'm like, no, not on that. So the one from the hospital says the doctor's name or whatever. And he goes, do you know his name? I'm like, I can't remember. And he goes, was he cool? And I'm like, yeah, he's a fucking doctor. You know, what are you after here? And he goes, well, I don't know. What was it like? You know, and I said, you know, it's gross. Childbirth is fucking gross. If you've been in the room,
kind of impressed that a 16-year-old is interested in this question.
I'm kind of concerned that he's.
He asked a lot. He asked a lot of questions. He's got an overactive mind too. I think he's also a bit dingy at times, but he's really smart, but also kind of scatterbrained. I think he's got kind of an overactive.
We
mind.
Love you though, Chuck.
Yeah. He thinks a lot. He thinks hard, and I said it was gross. He's like, what do you mean it's gross? I was like, well, yeah, no, you come out. That's great. And he goes, well, what's the doctor do? I said, the doctor doesn't do shit. Doctor shows up at the last minute. Puts the catcher's mitt on and says, all right, hit her here, you know. And he goes, what? And I said, the nurses do all the work. Doctor shows up at the 11th hour, slides you out.
Take all the credit.
Cuts the cord, and then delivers the afterbirth. I tell him this. And he goes, the what? I said, the placenta, you know, the afterbirth. And he goes, what the hell's that? I said, all the shit that kept you alive while you were in there. All that shit comes out after you come out. And he goes, oh, fucking gross. I was like, yeah, it's really gross. Doctor told me to watch my shoes. That's how gross it is. And he's like, oh my God. He's more.
You're not going to wear those, are you?
I mean, and that's a true story. Doctor's like, back up. And I was like, yes, sir. So it was actually
back off.
It's
a
whole
honestly
thing.
All of the things. So I'm trying to imagine his perspective as you're telling him this, and there's visual things in what you're saying.
I'll paint a picture for him.
But there's more to it. There's sounds and there's smells and there's
it's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so now he's probably terrified of his first child being born. He doesn't want to be in the room.
Good.
But
don't let it happen anytime soon, Chuck.
It's the miracle of childbirth. And he goes, the miracle of childbirth, huh? And I said, well, it's not really a miracle. And this is a real conversation. This is what we talked about. It's not really a miracle. I said about 97% of female humans can carry a child to term and deliver a child. And about 97% of men, humans, can inseminate an egg inside of a female human. So it's not really a fucking miracle. We can all do this shit. It's not that fucking special. Well, no one's that special. Okay? These people that like, oh, the miracle. Oh, I'm so the proudest moment of my life is when I became a father. Every fucking buddy else has become a father too. You're not special. What makes you special is being able to be a good parent. It's the next 20 years. It's everything that comes after inseminating that person and delivering that baby. Everything after that is what's important. What happened before that and in the delivering don't mean shit. That's not the fucking miracle. The miracle is parenting and raising a viable human being that's able to be a productive member of society and contribute so strong shit, strong words.
I was basically going to say something along the same lines.
Okay,
I don't find it all that miraculous. It is bizarre and I guess you could say amazing how it all works. But everybody has babies, and every creature has offspring, right? It's not even unique to humans.
Some of them shit them out by the dozens.
Right. It's just a thing.
Cats can spit out 15 of those fuckers.
Everything's doing it. It's not unique to us, and it's not unique to any type of person or whatever. Obviously, there are people who are unable to, and
that's a shame.
Some of them want to, and
my wife and I have talked about it. We are fortunate that we can, well, not anymore because I've been modified so that I don't impregnate anybody anymore. But
here he goes again. He's got to fuck with his shit all the time.
I broke the mic
to where his mic starts hanging down.
But but we were fortunate that she's a Nebraska cornfield, and I got swimmers. Everything was working out great. All I had to do was look at her the wrong way and like, fuck, another boy. It's just the way it goes. But then there's a lot of people out there that try and they go through drugs and all kinds of different things to help them, and that's a shame. And we are very lucky that we didn't have to go through that. So very fortunate.
So I did want to get into a little bit of that, and this is part of why I do think it can be a religious conversation. That I think a lot of people do put stock in the miracle of childbirth, a God-given gift, the sin behind ending a life, right? All those types of topics that come up. So I do think it's a pretty religious issue for many people. Do you find that to be
absolutely
true? Yeah,
sure, yeah. It's just that
and so not only are you having to make this decision on your own or morally, it's like in the eyes of God, and what are the long-term ramifications, right? So that's kind of where I was going with that, is that people put a lot more weight into it than some other people do.
That's true. I wasn't offering that argument because I've heard you both express that you don't believe in God.
But I really want to talk about it sometime, but that's a whole other episode.
Talk about God?
Well, I mean, talk about the religious implications of abortion, and that's where a lot of people's opinions on this subject stem from, is their faith. And I don't see any problem with that either. I think good for them that they have these grounded moral beliefs, and that's sure. Awesome. I would say that that's as good as anything. That's better than what I got. Mine is just my own conjecture and opinion. Mine's just bullshit, piss and vinegar. I'm basing it on. I'm not basing it off of anything else.
But I think it complicates when you've got someone who's religious and someone who isn't, and trying to get them to come to terms with this particular issue.
Well, that's why I decided not to use a religious argument, because I honestly, I feel like the issue can stand alone as a moral question or even a logical question. Some of what you were just saying a moment ago included, you talked about animals procreating, and some of them the procreation itself is not that big of a thing. And there is a religious aspect to the difference in how I look at that versus everything else. Human beings being made in the image of God. Mm-hmm. That's an important aspect. Do you agree that humans are much more valuable than any animal?
Every day I believe that less and less. And that's only slightly tongue-in-cheek.
Why? Because we have opposable thumbs and can change our environment and wear clothes. And,
I'm not prepared. I wish I could give you a great answer. I'm not prepared to give you a great answer. I feel like the question is what makes humans different? What sets humans apart? So and I don't have a great answer for that.
Do you listen to Rogan?
I've only listened to him like once or twice.
So I don't want to steal from his, I don't know if people listen to him and listen to us, but he's had a conversation.
I feel like we have the same audience.
Yeah, probably.
Dolphins and orcas, and he's had this Canadian marine biologist that had was a walrus or some shit that identified with him as his mother, what do they call it? Imprinted on him.
All right.
And they've done a lot of these studies on sea life and how their brains work, and that they have a frontal cortex that is much bigger than ours and much more active. They're actually extremely intelligent. The difference, the primary difference being that they cannot change their environment. They can't build structures. They don't have the faculties to do those things. They don't speak English like we do, so we really only understand like infinitesimal amount of what they're capable of. So, but yet we're, you know, more violent than they are, so we can capture them and we can put them in a fish tank in SeaWorld and observe them and treat them like, you know, animals in a cage.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we're smarter than them. And because we only understand, you know, this small amount. So to answer the question, I mean, I'm only talking about orcas and dolphins, and which are kind of the same, but like seals and sea lions and whatever. To say that we're more important to them, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe because we're pretty fucking horrible. Humans are pretty horrible things.
Yeah, I think we could generalize it and say that we're either we could say volatile or have a lot of potential for either harm or good.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think we're the most important thing to us. And I think, you know, dogs aren't as worried about us as they are about themselves. And ants don't value us more than they do themselves. So we just
happen to really think about it, they should. Because
I was say, I've actually heard stories about dogs valuing humans more than their own lives.
Yeah, well, a lot of times they do.
Heroic sometimes.
Yeah, I think they're heroic, but if you said, you know, they've got their puppies and their master, they're going to take care of their puppies.
Honestly, you know? it could be that they're just not understanding the risk that they're putting themselves in.
They're not what they, neither are we, but they're not what they originally were, you know, from the beginning, right? They were pack animals that
they've been bred to be what they are.
Right.
Domestication.
We're their pack now.
Yeah. Right. So that's, and I'm the alpha in my house with my dogs. They follow me around like crazy. But they don't know that I'm not a dog. They just think like he's the big motherfucker that feeds us periodically, you know? So we like him, you know? But we're also not what we were. I mean, if we believe in evolution, which I don't know, I do. I don't know if you do. To a degree.
Evolution happens.
Okay. So if we believe that, then we have to wonder, this is really getting deep here. You know, what was God's intention if he because he wouldn't have created Adam and Eve in his image, you know, if we believe in evolution and we go back from a you know, paleontology standpoint, and we say, okay, well, we know that there was Cro-Magnon man. We know that there was all the, I can't name all the different versions of man, cavemen in that, but Neanderthal and, you know, whatever. So we know that these things existed, and we've evolved into being what we are today. So what did God create? If we believe in this kind of bastardized version of creation versus evolution. If you want to throw away science altogether and say, well, no, he created Adam and Eve and period in the Garden of Eden, and they gave him an apple and they learned humility and yada yada yada. That's a different argument.
I hear you.
I could easily poke holes in, but I don't think we're going to make that argument. I'd
love to come back and revisit some of these questions in another year or so, because I feel like just lately I've discovered a lot of articles and authors that are really supporting the idea that these are not conflicting ideas, that science versus religion is the wrong way of looking at it, that they're not one's not defeating the other, but they can actually support each other. But I'm not prepared to summarize any of those arguments, but I'm interested in them.
We'll definitely have you back on.
Okay.
I would like in St. Louis, there's a radio station that has Dave Glover. You ever listen to Dave Glover?
Yep.
So he has battled his atheist religious stance, and I think he's gone back and forth a couple times. Like, he was raised Christian.
Is he the guy that has on the priest and the rabbi sometimes?
Yeah, right. It's a good segment he's got on, you know, and it's on 97.1 FM Talk, and they have a podcast version of their stuff too. Pardon me, and but I think he's gone back and forth. He was raised Christian, became atheist. Something convinced him. I think it was seeing the Shroud of Turin and the analysis of the Shroud of Turin, which is the cloth that Jesus was put in the tomb with. That made him change his mind. He became religious again. And now I think he's back to being atheist again. I think so. I could be wrong. But I wish there was someone or some point that could be made to me, and maybe it's out there, that would make me second guess the way I feel. I wish that I had, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, I wish that I had faith. And I really do, because I think it would put my mind at ease about a lot of things, you know. I think about like people that have passed, and I'm like, you know, what I think like in the traditional sense, like, well, they're watching over us or whatever. But then I think like, no, they're not, you know, because my mind starts to rattle around. But it'd be easier if I could just say, yeah, they're watching over us. It's cool and it's awesome. But I can't. I wish there was someone out there that could challenge those ideas in my head. We've gone from abortion to religion. We didn't mean to, but and it's probably my fault, so I apologize.
Knock it off, Ryan.
A couple things that get the kind of tangents to abortion that I thought we could talk about is you talked about the doctors being in the situation where they have to participate in it and having to have these life and death decisions. Do you think doctors should be compelled to perform an abortion? If they, I mean, so aside from compelled. Okay, so it's legal. It's legal to have an abortion. There's a patient who has elected an abortion, wants an abortion. Should their doctor that they already have a relationship with should they be required to perform an abortion? No.
Nor should the housekeeper that doesn't do windows be compelled to do windows.
Okay.
Nor should the baker that doesn't make gay, cakes for gay weddings be compelled to make a cake for a gay wedding.
I'm with you.
Those, you choose your profession, and you should be able to make a choice on whether or not how far you want to go with that profession. You know, if you're a school teacher and the curriculum suddenly changes and they tell you that. And let's say you're a Christian school teacher, and the curriculum changes and says, no, you can no longer talk about Jesus or God or creation. You have to only talk about evolution, and it goes completely against all of your religious beliefs. But you're a school teacher, and this is your livelihood. You shouldn't be forced by the government to teach that curriculum. Now, they can maybe compel you to have a balanced approach to the way you present that information, because school teachers, it's a little bit of a different animal. But also, you can choose a different job. You can go to work at a Christian school and things like that. But no, under no circumstances do I think a doctor should be compelled to do something that is against their own moral.
So then, what if even if that were to create a lack of availability, should that still be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want them to be. It's got to be.
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So I also agree with you. What if, kind of like you were alluding to, for whatever reason, everywhere you went, none of these doctors were willing to perform an abortion? I'm not saying you should force that, but let's go the other way. So everywhere you go, none of the restaurants want to serve black people. It's up to them. We can't force them. They're going to serve who they want to serve.
That's a different
nobody around here. Is it any different?
Yeah, I think it is, because there's laws that it's not about. It's a tougher conversation, but I think that when you're dealing with race, it's like saying, oh, no, I'm not going to serve Jews. I'm not going to serve blacks. I'm not going to serve Mexicans or Latinos, whatever. That's discrimination. That's just flat discrimination. Now, if you say that...
But it's their choice.
So the baker's not going to say, I'm not going to sell you a cupcake. They're just going to say, I'm not going to make you a cake that celebrates your union to another person of the same sex. So now, they can't say, I'm not going to serve you because you're gay. That they cannot do.
But what's the difference?
The doctor can't say,
I'm not going to do my job because you're gay.
I'm not going to be your doctor because you're black or gay or Hispanic. They can say, I won't do that. They can also say, I'm not going to tattoo your numbers on your eyelids. They can say these things. They can object to a lot of things.
But I think, having a bunch of cupcakes in the case and getting them out for whoever comes next in line and saying, oh, you have to do that because you made cupcakes for everybody and you have to serve whoever comes in line. But if they want a custom ordered cake for their wedding and you don't support gay weddings,
you can object to that.
No, what's the difference? Like, why are you going to force them to sell them a cupcake to the next person in line as opposed to forcing?
That's just good business. But I think that any baker, anybody that's out there making anything, if they're going to object to that kind of thing, well, they're not in the right business. They should probably think.
And that's been the case. Is like the government shouldn't get involved. let them serve whoever they don't want to serve and whoever they do want to serve, and the business, the free market will weed it out. You know, if enough people get upset with that. But I mean, if you said that in the 1950s to every place that wasn't serving black people, the market didn't bear it out. They still weren't serving black people. I don't know why I'm having a hard
time articulating my point on this, but that's discrimination. Saying that you're not going to serve black people or Hispanics or
but why do we say let's just let them do whatever?
I'll serve you, but I won't serve you in this manner is a completely different argument. That you observe to you object to the service. You don't object to the individual. So if a black person walks into my bakery and they say, "Hey, I need a cake," great. What kind of cake? Chocolate? Yeah, no problem. Here you go. I can make you a chocolate cake.
Had to be chocolate, didn't it? Right?
Whatever.
It wasn't Oreo.
So, I
wait.
think,
okay, keep going.
So they ask for a cake, but they say, "I want a cake." Let's flip this. Let me back up a second. A white guy walks into the bakery. He says, "I want a cake." He says, "What kind of cake do you want?" "I want a chocolate cake." "Great, here's your chocolate cake." "Hey, can you put a swastika on the top of it?" The baker's gonna be like, "Oh fuck no, I can't do that. No, I'm not putting a swastika on this." Right? He happy to sell you the cake. He'll sell you the fucking icing to make the swastika, but he's not going to put the swastika on the fucking cake because that's against a lot of things, right? Okay. That most people would agree with, right? There's no
difference. We shouldn't make him do that.
Absolutely not.
But if, let's just say it's a Hispanic baker and a white guy comes in and he's like, "Nope, I don't serve white people."
That's we have to
make him serve white people.
Absolutely, because that's discrimination.
How is it any different? He's discriminating against Nazis by not making the swastika.
He'll still sell the cake to the white guy. He's just not going to sell him a cake that symbolizes hatred and death.
Okay, let's let Rick weigh in.
Jews.
Yeah, I think.
What do you think?
I'm going to try to see if I understand. I'll start with that. I'll see if I understand your points. I think that you're trying to make a distinction between different types of. I'm going to use discrimination a little bit differently. I personally don't like how.
He loves the word discrimination.
I think discrimination's underrated.
Okay.
I say that in jest because I don't to discriminate. I'm using this to mean to differentiate, to discern or make a distinction, understand the difference.
Okay. It's just being a tool about using the word discriminate.
Fair enough.
That's okay.
We did the same thing about the miracle of childbirth. So it's fair.
Okay, so
fair.
So we're trying to say that certain types of discrimination are acceptable and certain types of discrimination are not. I think, Ryan, what you're saying is that it's not okay to discriminate based on someone's race, but it is okay to discriminate based on the message in that's involved in the service.
I don't call it discrimination, but I see your point.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it discrimination, but I understand why you are, and don't disagree with that.
Let me use a different word then. I think you're trying to say that it's not okay to not serve someone because of their race. It is okay to not serve someone because of their message.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm just using discriminate, meaning to that's really just how you're making the distinction. Discriminate means to make the distinction.
Fair enough.
But you're saying that you want it to be more, that you're making the case that it should be more about free will, and there's going to be a market for someone to serve the people who others wouldn't serve. So a market would bear that out anyway.
Yeah, so while on the surface, I agree with you that there is a difference and you should not discriminate or discern or whatever based on race, but discriminating, choosing not to serve someone based on their message or whatever, you should be allowed to do if you don't agree with whatever. So on the surface, I agree that there's a distinction there. But when you kind of back up a little bit and it's like, so we're going to take government interaction to force a business owner to serve someone for whatever reason, in this case, but we're not going to take action to force them to serve everyone. That just seems like, what the fuck? Why, if we don't care that they discriminate, so to speak, here, then we shouldn't care that they discriminate there. And if that affects their business, so be it. But on the flip side, like I said, if we said this 60 years ago, we'd still be not serving a lot of groups.
I guess what we've neglected to mention here is there's this whole freedom of religion thing that the government cannot intervene and cannot tell you what religion you follow and how you follow that religion. So they can't impose a law upon someone that says you have to make this wedding cake for this gay couple. if it goes against your religious beliefs. They can't do that. The government can't compel you to do that by law.
And again, we get back to incorporating religion into life and politics and whatever.
Yeah.
It complicates things.
I mean, do you think that religion had a lot to do with establishing the values in our country? Western values in general?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it did.
I think it's difficult to argue.
A lot of it's founded that way. I mean,
right.
Got the whole "in God we trust."
But there's a lot of stuff
that was recently added, but yes,
founded.
It wasn't added in 1776.
Okay.
So God we trust and under God was all later. It wasn't all original equipment with the U.S. Constitution.
Got it.
and
all that. But
definitely,
I think majority of the founders were
religious
Christians.
people. Yeah.
I think there was also a few in there that were probably questioning things. There were probably some that were fucking pagans. There were a lot that were Masons. Which you've had some opinions about Masons, but that's another conversation for another day.
The Rotary Club.
Yeah. So, where are we at here? Woof.
It's about time.
Yeah. I don't know that we've really unpacked everything here, but
no, I feel like Rick didn't get to say his piece.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
back.
I kind of did. I had my little rant there. That was that was an important thing I wanted to say.
One thing that I didn't know that we would get into or not, but you and I have gotten into in the past. And it's a whole other. We could talk about this for another hour, so we probably shouldn't. But when is it a life? And I know you've said the moment of conception, and we talked about that a little bit. I don't agree. But I've told you I don't really know when I think it is. I just don't think it's the moment of conception. I think you could go back before conception. You've got an egg and sperm, which are
two separate elements
living
altogether.
things that have their own stuff going on within your
aren't
body.
there religions that say that
and to
masturbation
say that that's not life
is a sin because you're wasting multiple lives, into the tissue or wherever you happen to dispose of said. But then isn't a period?
Well, and that's where I say that's
so.
What I've said.
Okay, you can take that back further. Right. Okay, you've gone back as far as a developed egg and a developed sperm, and even before that, the bodies that created those things were not mature, and in that woman, those eggs weren't there at the moment of her conception. Right. Those were grown at some point, and the sperm was grown at some point. So you can always take it back further. And think about that whole timeline. However far back you want to go, take it back as far as you want to go. And if you want to define a point in that timeline where suddenly it has changed from separate things to one human, when's that going to be? It seems very clear to me that that's at the point where those two things come together.
You're right. That's the point where this can evolve to become, evolve's the wrong word, but that's the point where it can turn into a human, right? So before that, an egg is not, unless something else happens, an egg is not going to turn into a human. Unless something else happens, a sperm is not going to turn into a human. But I look at it as like this long circle of life, Lion King kind of thing, where it's like, that's just part of the phase. It's still living tissue and organisms before conception, so to speak, and it is after, but it's all just like, it's not like at that moment it's a life with a soul that can pray to God and all this stuff, right? It's like that. That's all. It's all just part of the process.
Do you believe in the death penalty?
I struggle with that. I even
because you probably do.
That's code for hell. Yes, I do.
Kill that motherfucker.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Similarly, I similarly struggle with killing people in time of war. So there's I had that question raised with somebody else at work when we had this conversation in the past, and he took issue with me using the phrase pro-life. If I was going to be okay with death penalty, how can I call myself pro-life? And I was like, would you rather I call myself anti-abortion? Is that more accurate? Okay, yes, I am definitely anti-abortion.
Well, I think that is
I'm pretty sure that I'm pro-life, I think, but I'm definitely anti-abortion.
Yeah. Well, I think the pro-choice people, a lot of them will make the argument that they're not. Some people will say that means that they're pro-abortion, but I think a lot of pro-choice people are not pro-abortion. They're just not anti-abortion. They want to leave it open to, everybody, every woman for themselves, every human for themselves, if you will. So, but yeah. And anyway, the death penalty thing's an interesting one, and wartime is a really interesting thing because it definitely conflicts with a lot of principles, right? You on the far right, on the right, let's just say on the right, the religious right. The most people are pro-life, but also most people are pro-death penalty. And how do they reconcile that?
I don't agree with that.
Oh, I think they are. Yeah, I think
almost everyone. Well, okay. Many people I know when I was growing up in a Christian community, church-going, all that, are totally not
pro-death penalty.
Not at all.
Well, I could be wrong.
It's very much like,
I guess
you are not to decide, God decides. It's
regardless,
not up to us.
They exist. Maybe we'll forget about generalities. We don't like generalities anyway.
There's people, yes, they exist.
But there are religious right members who are pro-life and pro-death penalty and pro-military. Almost everybody out there is pro-military, right? Which means that you're willing to resort to violence.
I've recently started listening to a podcast from a guy who feels pretty strongly about being anti-war. So that's kind of a new concept to me, but it's something that I don't know.
Being anti-war is a new concept?
I guess I'm realizing that it's not as simple as, I don't want to go to war. It's a strong conviction that it's not an acceptable thing for a country to do. It's one thing to defend yourself. Right. It's one thing to defend yourself, but it's just not one of the roles that a government should. I don't know. It's just an interesting. There's more to it than I just don't like war.
Right.
It's not a passing comment.
Ron Paul podcast.
No. I'll tell you his name if I think of it. It's
Ron and Rand Paul. I think were both famously quoted as saying, we should just stay out of other countries' business. We should just stick to our own land, our own problems. And if someone wants to come over and fuck with this, then we'll defend ourselves. But we're not going to go over and police the nation or police the world, rather. And there's a lot of good arguments that can be made for that stance.
I struggle with that a lot.
Honestly, we're getting down a rabbit hole here, but our involvement in a lot of these wars is the cause of the next war,
it doesn't. It
there's
never ends.
Definitely ramifications.
It never ends.
Long term. Yep.
Anyway, this has been. I feel like we need to do something silly right now. I don't know. We never did review the beer. I'm not going to give it a number or anything like that. If I did give it a number,
do you like it? Or
I'm just going to base it on flavor. Flavor 0 to 10, I will give it a 0.4. There's almost no fucking flavor to this.
I'm not very critical of my beers.
Yeah,
I don't
just like them cold and
it's
wet.
It's fine. Yeah, I do like it cold. It's good enough for me.
I will say you're right. It doesn't have a lot of flavor, but it does have a little bit of that light beer flavor. It doesn't have any bad like skunkiness or whatever. Yeah. It's just like it's crisp. It has a nice carbonation to it. It feels organic. No, it doesn't in any way feel organic, but
I agree that there's no.
It's just light beer.
I would not distinguish this from any other Michelob.
It makes me feel like going to the farmer's market and buying some kale.
Yeah, right. Some quinoa. Yeah. I will say I wouldn't pay more for this than I would, Busch Light. Yeah. But it's fine. It's light beer.
You probably couldn't give that to me. I'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Busch Light, you mean?
No,
this one.
Yeah, I take Busch Light. That's not.
But they're definitely catering to the health conscious workout fiends who want to still enjoy some beer, not a lot of calories or carbs, and it's organic. So you're
it's got to be good,
right? Everything's good.
It's got to be awesome. Yeah,
that's what my wife says. Anyway, all right, let's wrap it up. We've kind of, I don't know, we didn't solve anything. No. I'm not sure we even said everything we wanted to say, but we appreciate.
I think it was thought provoking, though. I think that what I hope at least, and tell us how you feel about it, whether or not it was thought-provoking, or if you'd like us to go down this path more in the future.
How can they tell us?
They could let us know via email, loadthispodcast@gmail.com, or they could send us a message on social media. Load This Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And on YouTube, if you're watching this, you know how to do that. You can comment right down there. And what is it? Get a Load of This podcast
right.
on YouTube if you're listening and you'd like to see our beautiful smiling faces. Let us know how you feel about this kind of conversation. It's serious. We didn't do a lot of jokey, funny stuff, but I hope that it was thought-provoking. Maybe it pissed you off. Maybe it aggravated you to no end. If you'd like to have a conversation with us about anything, it could be this, it could be religion, it could be the death penalty, it could be the 2019 St. Louis Cardinals. It could, whatever you want. Shoot us an email. Let us know what you'd like to talk about, and you can sit in that chair.
Speaking of, we appreciate Rick coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll definitely have him back sometime. And
I think you're gonna hang around. We can do. We're gonna do a half loaded.
If he'll have us, he'll stay for the half loaded episode.
We're not gonna get this serious. Maybe we'll talk about belt buckles, or we'll talk about.
That sounds better.
Yeah. This is a serious, intense conversation. So, anyway, thanks for listening to us. Thanks for tuning in. That's it.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm Jared.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Rick.
And get a load of this.
It's not you're doing anything wrong.
What are the things that stand out?
Well, no, just the times that you've broken.
How are you on beer? I've got some that I want ready to have, but you're ready?
I'm ready.
Hold on, Ryan. Yes. Don't open that yet. I'll get it out once we start.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I can't.
So what issues with me do you blame on Rick?
I gotta drink it. It won't go back in the cooler.
All right, fine.
Too much ice.
I'm guessing you'll make it.
Now, this is an exciting experience for me because I only get Jared's perspective, and I get to hear you a lot.
Yeah. Well, I have questions for you. So I ask him all the time, dude, I talk too fucking much. He goes, no, you're good. And I'm very conscious of it. And I've asked Joe about it. I've asked everybody that I know that listens. They're like, no, you kind of drive the conversation. You keep it. It's not too much. And I'm like, but it feels like too much. So listening to this last one, the last two, I was like, man, that's a lot of Ryan. That's a whole. But then I let him talk, and he asked me a fucking question.
Well, I mean, I definitely chime in with my point. I just don't go on and on and on.
Yeah, and then you ask me a question, and then it's like, well, fuck, now I'm talking again.
I'm never sitting here going, I wish he'd let me talk. It's all good.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask. One of the things I was going to ask you is it too much Ryan? That guy talks too much. Jesus.
How many episodes have you guys done? You've done quite a few.
90.
There have been episodes where I wanted to hear more from someone else.
Yeah.
But overall, I would not say that there's just an overly dominating presence of Ryan.
Okay, well, good. No. So, I mean, I do talk.
You feel
a lot.
better?
No. I'll always question.
Yeah.
When I should shut the fuck up.